hmm Awesome, awesome, awesome. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, whenever you are catching this. Thank y'all so much for joining me and my boy Garrett for episode 58 of the Uncommon Commentators. Y'all see the name of the podcast at the bottom of the screen. Want to thank y'all again for joining us, and happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Whatever you celebrate, of course, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, whatever you celebrate, absolutely. Just, glad y'all made it through the holidays and y'all had a blessed time with your families. But how you feeling, Garrett? How was your holiday, man? It's been a while since we got to chop it up like this, so it's good to see you again, man. Absolutely.
Yeah, good to see you too, my brother. Yeah, my holidays was very, very nice. Spending time with the family, of course, family and friends. That's what it's all about. So I hope you all had a very wonderful Christmas and Happy New Year to everybody. So glad to be back here with my guy Antoine, ready to get it going.
Absolutely, yeah, man. And we got a good show for y'all tonight. Got some pretty good topics. We think y'all are gonna enjoy seeing us go back and forth about. But yeah, we can go ahead and get to the nitty gritty, man. We were gonna start off with assessing the two dominant teams of the NBA so far. As we record this, we're about 36 games into the season. Most teams have played 36 or about 35 games thus far. And through those 35, 36 games, the Oklahoma City Thunder are 30-6 atop the Western Conference. They've looked really good. Obviously, they looked great last year, like how we have discussed in the past. But to see them really take this leap has been honestly astronomical. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander is really playing at an MVP level. Just calling him an all-star would be disrespectful. He's truly really he's always been a 30-point per game dude, at least the last couple of seasons, but now it's really more so like his leadership, his execution on the floor, and his playmaking has even taken a step higher this year. And I feel like even the playmaking alone was going to really put Oklahoma over the top. And they're doing all of this without Chet Holmgren as well, which is extremely scary for the Western Conference. But how do you feel about Oklahoma thus far? The second seed are the Houston Rockets, and they're 24-12 right now. So Oklahoma has a pretty confident lead atop the Western Conference in terms of the standings. So how do you think Oklahoma has performed thus far in the season?
I mean, clearly they're the best team in the West, right? I mean, they only lost 6 games, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's they're on a roll, and I think possibly, I mean, of course, it's always different in the playoffs. It doesn't matter what seed that you are. So, but I think for this year, this could be their year possibly. But I mean, for me, I'm always going to rock with Denver. I still think that they are the best team in the West, even though that they've gone off to a slow start. But like I said, when it comes to playoffs, it's a different story. But I think with OKC, I think they're showing us a lot more than what we saw last year in terms of their maturity and their chemistry. They've added some depth to the roster, like Alex Caruso and Isaiah Hardenstein. So those type of moves, it definitely helps their team overall. But I think that they could win it all this year. But like I said, we just have to see what comes to the playoffs. But I think they have a really good chance.
Yeah, man. Like, even as I look at the stats, like as I record this, SGA is averaging 31.3 per game. Like their leading rebounder is Jalen Williams, averaging 5.8. Of course, he's a little bit of an undersized four. Even as I say undersized, all of Oklahoma is really like honestly a positionless team. They all really transition to whatever is needed for the night, and that really just shows their versatility and what Sam Presti has created. And they're doing all of this without like a crazy grizzled veteran. They're doing they are the veterans. They just walk on the court with the confidence needed as a really young team, and their skill set matched like their actual drive and determination, which is extremely rare at the age that they are. Like Chet is still only 22 years old. Of course, he isn't healthy at the moment, but we know what he's capable of. J Dub is only 23. Jalen Williams and SGA himself just he turned 26 in July. So having a superstar at the top of the roster who arguably arguably hasn't even hit his peak yet, gives Oklahoma a championship window. And I think Chet Holmgren will also go on to hit that superstar level as well, the former number 2 overall pick. I just think he has to get back on the court, and he hasn't have health problems seriously. I can't really say that. Of course, we saw him miss his first year after what happened with LeBron in those OTAs, but he's looked generally healthy throughout his career. And I think when he does return, it's gonna make them even better. And I do want to gloss over what you said when you said that they might go all the way this year. If we had to give early predictions in January 9th, as we record this, I think 100% they're the betting favorites. It's like it's their depth, like their good offense, defense, their bench. Like it really doesn't matter what lineup they try to hit you with. They continue to be dominant with pieces like Cason Wallace off the bench, Alex Caruso off the bench, who we know is an amazing defender. They also gave him a contract extension, so that makes him an even better, an even bigger, more important piece of their core for the future. And he himself is honestly a really good veteran for them, and he's changed their defense dramatically. You always hear SGA talking about how in practices Alex Caruso is terrifying. But to end on Oklahoma, they just got to keep performing the way that they have. I mean, they're not slowing down. As we record this, unfortunately, they lost to Cleveland. I mean, but we do know what Cleveland is doing as well over in the Eastern Conference. They've looked spectacular as well. They lost to them 129 to 122 last night. SGA had 31 points, still doing his thing. And it was still a fairly competitive game. I just think, it was two good teams. One had to lose, and it just happened to be Oklahoma. I think if that's a playoff series, that could be a finals. You never know. I think that goes totally different over 7 games, knowing what both teams are capable of. If I had to pick in that series, I'd probably favor a KC. And yeah, and again, like they've done it again, building a really good young core, similar to the Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant and James Harden era. Sam Presti has replicated a great roster, even at the young age that they are. And we're gonna see what they do. God forbid any of their important pieces get injured going on in this season. If they don't, I do think they'll end this season as the first seed. SGA will probably be top 3 for the most valuable player award. And we'll see how it goes. But outside of that, how do you foresee Oklahoma's season with what they've done thus far?
Yeah, like I said before, they're the best team in the West and really arguably the best team in the league. Of course, they just lost to Cleveland, but I just think that when you look at this team overall, I mean, you have to really tip your cap off how this team has been put together because I mean they're the best team in the West, and you look at their core. I mean, most of their core is under 25 years old. I mean, SGA, their leader is 26 and everybody else is under 25. So, and the thing about it, I mean, we know SGA, we all know what he is, but guys like Chet Holmgren and J Dub, I mean, you're talking about other guys that haven't even, are not even in their prime years. And we're talking about them as the best team in the West. So just imagine where this team could be within the next 5 years. And that's excluding the fact that they have a lot of flexibility and assets to bring in another superstar player. So that's the scary part, and that's why I say I think that this team is going to win a championship soon. It may not it may not be this year or even next year, but I think that within the next 5 years, I'd be shocked if they don't at least make it to the finals.
Finals, right?
Yeah, but I think that they definitely should be in there for sure. But yeah, I just think that with OKC, I mean, like I said, they're a very scary team, and they just have so much versatility on both ends of the floor. And like I said, I think with the moves that they made in the off season, I think it's going to take them even further. But I just think that the real test comes into the playoffs. Really, they've proven that hey, they can beat anybody in the playoffs. So it's just a matter of when they get there, can they really build off of what they did last year? So that's what everybody's waiting to see.
If you had to pick a team in the West that would beat them in the playoffs, what team would that be?
I'll still say Denver. I can't count out Murray. I can't count out Joker. All those guys. I mean, they are former champions within the last 5 years. I just can't count those teams. I can't really say teams like Houston because they're still a young team, and I don't think that they could beat OKC for out of 7 games. I just think that a team like Denver, who has more experience, championship experience rather, and they do have the best player in the league, in my opinion, in Nikola Jokic. So while he's still playing at an all-time high, I mean, he's a walking triple-double. And like I said, with Denver, once they're locked in, then hey, they're a hard team to beat. But yeah, I still have Denver that can possibly beat Oklahoma City.
Right. It's funny you say at an all-time high because he plays in the Mile High City. And even as I record this, he's averaging 32 points a game, 13 rebounds with 10 assists every single night. He is doing that. The greatest draft steal in the history of the sport, without a doubt, can never, ever, ever be argued. But yeah, he's looked good. Obviously, with Nikola, people do think Jamal Murray has taken a dip. He's averaging 19 points per game while passing 6 assists and grabbing 4 rebounds. He's almost averaging 2 steals. So he is playing pretty good defense this year. I just think he still had to just honestly it's kind of hard to explain because I feel like obviously he's a professional basketball player, but even at the highest level you're going to go through certain cold streaks, and I think he really tried to get his confidence back, and I think Nikola has continued to import that confidence in him. And I appreciate you answering that question because I just really wanted to think if it was going to be inside of their conference, because obviously they're going to have to play all their teams to get to the finals, what team would it be? And I do believe it honestly will be Denver. I do think they still have the best player on the planet as long as they have Nikola. They're at least going to be a 5th seed. He makes his teammates around him that much better. And I do think they're going to have to get through that Serbian to get to the finals, but. Talking about Cleveland over in the Eastern Conference, they've replicated a similar performance to the Oklahoma City Thunder. You could say they've dominated the Eastern Conference, but it appears that their kryptonite would be one Atlanta Hawks. They lost to the Hawks back-to-back in the Quicken Loans Arena when the Hawks were 8-11, and both losses were double digits. One was, and the other one was a 9-point loss. So. And Donovan Mitchell had 30 points in both games. So he really performed the way he always does. It's just the Hawks managed to get those victories, but they've maintained their consistency. Right after losing to Atlanta, they got on another 4-game win streak, and they lost to Miami after the 4-game win streak, and now they're on another crazy win streak. After that, I think it's 10 games. We're on a 10-game win streak again. The Cleveland Cavaliers. So, man, I honestly can't tell you what has happened in that locker room that has made them really hit this next step this season. I feel like it's. You can honestly say Evan Mobley starting to hit his potential more. Everyone has always been high on Evan Mobley, the former number 3 overall pick in the draft. He's really taking that star leap this year, in my opinion, averaging 19 points a game with 9 rebounds. He's a great defender as well. I do think he will always be in the running of Defensive Player of the Year. Unfortunately, he's playing in the same era as Victor Wembanyama, so I think it's going to be pretty difficult to beat him, especially as they both age throughout the years. And yeah, Cleveland's look great, man. It's really kind of hard to deny them. Even with the 4 losses that they do have, they just look super polished, and they have really good depth as well. And even statistically, they match everything they're supposed to. Like Donovan Mitchell's averaging 23 points a game, Jarrett Allen averages 10 rebounds a game, and Garland's averaging 6.7 assists. That's normally where Darius Garland averages. He's more of a scoring point guard himself, but their backcourt are playing the way they're supposed to. They're both averaging over 20 points per game, with Evan Mobley in the back averaging 19 a game. Obviously, the Hawks were celebrated for having 3 players averaging over 20 points a game, but the Cleveland Cavaliers are right behind the Hawks with Evan Mobley almost averaging 20 and 10 over 30 games into the season. So eventually, I think we will see Evan Mobley take over and become the guy of the Cleveland Cavaliers. But right now, he's still playing behind Donovan Mitchell. who's played great this season himself, even though he's averaging 23 points a game. He's still been very, very efficient, shooting 41% from beyond the arc this year, 81% from the free throw line. Really just still playing at an all-star level the way he normally does coming out of Utah. And yeah, there's really nothing much else to really say about Cleveland. They're on another 10-game win streak, like I said. They're hard to beat on any given night. I can't tell you what the Hawks, I guess they just rose to the occasion on both times to get those victories, knowing who they were facing. But how do you think Cleveland does, based on what they've done so far? How do you see the rest of their season going, heading into the playoffs and stuff like that?
Yeah, they had their foot on the gas pedal. So I think throughout the rest of the season, I think that's what they're going to be doing. They're going to continue to win games, have these winning streaks, and clearly they're the best team in the East. Now, of course, we talked about what team could beat OKC in the playoffs, which what I mentioned Denver. In the East, I think it'll be Boston, and I think an underdog could be New York because they've been playing well. But I think Boston, because since they won the championship last year and they are the second best team in the East, obviously I think they would give them a chance, run for their money. But with Cleveland, I think when they hired Kenny Atkinson, I think they needed a new guy that could come in, have a new voice, and have more leadership and really getting the team together and trust for one another. It's not like Cleveland went into the offseason and had a major, overhaul on their roster. It's pretty much the same roster they had last year, really. And so they just, like I said, brought in Kenny Atkinson, who is a very well-respected head coach. He's been in the league he's been in the league for a very long time, and he was once a assistant coach for the Hawks, for Mike Budenholzer about a decade ago. So yeah, with Cleveland, they're very, very good team, and even Stephen A. off of ESPN First Take did mention that, hey, they could possibly win it all, and I totally agree. I think they could. Like I said, I think with this matchup between Cleveland and OKC, that could very well possibly be the matchup of the finals this year. It very could well be that way. So I think that with Cleveland, I agree. I think they can go all the way this year. But like I said, I think with Boston, they've been playing well, of course. So I think that's the only team that can really beat Cleveland 4 out of 7 games. But Cleveland, I'm not too shocked at where they are. So they're doing very, very well.
Yeah, man, you just reminded me. I completely forgot they hired Kenny Atkinson coming out of Golden State over the summer, man. I know just last season, the 23-24 season, the Cleveland Cavaliers were 48-34 with JP Bickerstaff. Nothing against JP Bickerstaff. We know he's a pretty decent coach himself. Obviously, he has the Detroit Pistons playing at a better level than they played in the past this season. They're 19-18 in the 8th seed in the Eastern Conference of the Detroit Pistons. The season prior, I don't even want to because it'd be disrespectful to mention the performances because they obviously were not a good team last year. And JB Bickerstaff has just completely altered the culture of that team. But for Kenny Atkinson in Cleveland, I think he's done that for Cleveland and even more. He's really changed their identity, especially making them apply more pressure on the defensive side of the ball. He's really unlocked more in Jarrett Allen in terms of his physicality in the post. We know Jarrett Allen, people love to post that gif of him saying the lights were too bright and stuff like that. I think he's past that stage in his career. I think when the playoffs come around next time, he'll definitely be prepared, especially because Cleveland, they're a good team right now. He's playing in front of a sold out arena every single night. I get the playoffs are different, but with his teammates by his side and a new coach, I do think that even Jarrett Allen's going to perform even better. And I say him in particular because I think he's their X factor in the playoffs with the way he performs. The former All-Star Jarrett Allen. Just having 4 potential All-Stars on the team really shows you how good Cleveland really is. And like I said, Kenny Atkinson has truly helped the Cleveland Cavaliers hit an entirely new level. And And I think he's going to be with them for a very long time. Even if they don't win it all this year, they have so much to build off right now. And like I said, they have another future star, possibly superstar, with Evan Mobley. So I'm really excited to see what he's going to do. But as we ended on both of these teams, who would you favor if they were in the finals right now? Cleveland and Oklahoma.
Man, it's so hard, but I think that I feel like I'm going to say Cleveland. Given the fact that, I mean, don't get me wrong, I think that it will go to 7 games, but I think with Cleveland, given the fact that they just have more experience, even though, I mean, Donovan Mitchell, I mean, he has more playoff experiences, and I think that they slightly have more talent. Slightly, I'm not saying by a lot, but when you look at their starting 5, I feel like it's a little bit stronger than OKC as of right now. And like I said, OKC, they are a younger team, so I think that playoff experience is going to matter. But I think that is just they're very level, they're very balanced, head to head. But I think for Cleveland, I think when it comes down to the wire, I have them, closing it out. So I think I'll go with Cleveland on this one. But like I said, I think it'll go to 7 games. So it's not going to be like a sweep or a gentleman sweep or nothing like that. It'll definitely go to 7 games.
Yeah, I can see why you would say that, man. That'd be a pretty insane series. Hopefully it doesn't happen.
It would.
Because we would have spoiled our picks and stuff like that. But either way, they're the front runners regardless. But if I had to give my pick to end off on the first topic, I'd probably go with Oklahoma. Only because they have more playoff. I can say they have more playoff experience. Obviously, Cleveland has been there before. I just think that they've had more momentum going into the playoffs. They've known they actually have a real chance of winning the finals. Even last season, they were the first seed. Tied for the first seed with Denver and stuff like that. And I think this time around, they're going to be made for that. I think, and of course, this is another team that plays in front of a sold-out arena literally every single night. So, the pressure will never be too much. We know that SGA is clutch in those big moments. So he's not only a superstar, he's actually made for those moments that make you a superstar. So, I look forward to it. If I had to choose, I would go Oklahoma. I think they probably beat them 4-1, something like that. I just think that they could with the death. Don't get me wrong, it's not to disrespect Cleveland or nothing that.
So Cleveland only get 1 game?
I mean,
I don't know, man. I don't know about that one.
I think a fully healthy Oklahoma gives them problems, with Chet in the middle and in their offensive firepower and their defense as well. With Lou Dort on the perimeter, he's a great 3-and-D shooter. I don't know who's stopping SGA. Don't get me wrong, it's gonna be hard to stop Donovan Mitchell, but I think they could probably come up with some game plans to really, I think Alex Caruso would give Darius Garland problems the whole series. It's hard to stop Donovan Mitchell, so he's gonna get his regardless. Evan Mobley is where things will get interesting, but I think that's when Chet comes in, or Jalen Williams, whoever, even though Mobley's way bigger than Williams, stuff like that. It'd be a crazy series the more I talk about it. I'm not wanting to disrespect.
I mean, that's why I say it's hard. It's hard to, to say. I mean, both teams, they have their niche, and it's something to debate about. So it's not easy.
Yeah, no, you're right. Last thing I will say is we've seen close games down to the wire, and on paper it'd still be 4-1 and stuff like that. But as we move on to the next topic, clearly we are approaching February. We know with February what comes in February, the All-Star break. You feel me? It's one of the best seasons, one of the best times of the year. Not during the holidays. For all basketball fans all over the world, get to see their favorite players team up and play with each other. We're not going to discuss it too much because it's not in the notes for today, but obviously there is a new All-Star format heading into the season. It's going to be pretty interesting to see how that works with how they're doing 3 different teams and stuff like that. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But with the All-Star voting, clearly there's always starters and reserves. And we wanted to discuss who we think should be the starters and the reserves. Just really going position for position. Even with the Eastern Conference right now, in the front court, Giannis is leading the way with over 2 million votes. Jason Tatum is second with over 2 million, and Cat is third with 1.8 million. Now, like to really show you the drop off, after that, it's Paolo Banchero with 788,000 and so forth. Like Jaylen Brown, 700,000, Jimmy Butler, 375. Like, so that really shows you, like, you know, we know who the fans want to see this year. That's for the front court. For the guards, LaMelo, regardless of the state of the Charlotte Hornets, LaMelo remains one of the most popular players in all of basketball. Having the most votes in the Eastern Conference, period, with 1.4 million. Obviously, he has an extremely fan-friendly playing style. He's been famous damn near his entire life, you know, coming out of middle school, playing with his older brothers in high school, playing in Lithuania just to get to the league. I feel like people really underestimate LaMelo Ball's work ethic and what he really had to do to get to the league. We know his brother, LiAngelo, is getting some buzz on the internet right now for a song he just released called Tweaker. It's a pretty good song. If you guys want to go check it out, kind of reminds me of like the old 2000s Cash Money days. If you guys ever get a chance to listen to that. But second in All-Star voting for the guards is Donovan Mitchell with 1.1 million, and Damian third with just over 1 million. After that, which I'm kind of surprised by this, Jalen Brunson only has 934,000. You think he'd have more playing in New York City,
Right.
but of course it's hard to get those votes. But if I had to ask you who you think, like, you know, should be the starting point guard, shooting guard, or maybe some of the given starters going into this All-Star game, who would you say are some of the given starters and who you think should be a starter and not getting love?
Yeah, so for the point guard in the East, I gotta go with my man Ice Trae. I mean, he's having a phenomenal year, coming off of a half court game winning shot against the Jazz on the road. Man, had a 2020 game performance. I mean, he's just been killing it this year. And even though the Atlanta, they are a playing team as of right now,
Right.
but I mean, there was a time where they were on a hot winning streak and they were beating the top teams in the East. I mean, they beat Boston without Trae. They've beaten New York twice. I mean, they've beaten the Lakers. I mean, they've beaten Milwaukee. I mean, but like I said, even though they've been slipping a little bit though, but I think all that heavily involves around Trae, honestly.
Mhm.
And even Trae hit the game winning shot against the Lakers on at home as well. So I think Trae deserves the starting spot at the point guard position. For the shooting guard position, I would say Donovan Mitchell,
Mhm.
obviously on the best team in the East right now. So they're on a roll, and he's been one of the main guys that's been leading them, if not the guy. And so I had to give it to Donovan Mitchell. Small forward, Jason Tatum. These are just the obvious picks, obviously.
Mhm.
Giannis at the 4 and then Embiid at the 5. So those are the stars I have for the East. For the reserves, I think Jalen Brunson should get in it.
Okay.
Jalen Brown for sure. Paulo Banchero should definitely be in it as well. Then the last two have Dame and Karl Anthony Towns.
Nah, man, those were great picks for sure. And like for me personally, it's kind of similar in how, like in like the ones that I chose as well. I do want to mention that because you mentioned Jaylen Brown. It's pretty crazy how Jason Tatum has 2.2 million votes, and
Hmm.
Jaylen Brown, the Finals MVP, reigning Finals MVP, only has 723,000 votes, not even over a million. Now, clearly, we all know how talented Jaylen Brown is coming out of California. The former third overall pick himself. He's a great player. I've always been high on Jaylen Brown, great two-way talent. I can't tell you why he didn't crack a million. I think maybe like the marketability stuff like that. Maybe like
Hmm.
We know that Jason Tatum sells a lot off the floor with his shoes and his merchandise and stuff like that. And obviously, we see Jason all over the Gatorade commercials all the time. You cannot watch an NBA game without seeing Jason Tatum. If they're going to show a player to represent the green and white, it's always number 0 all the time. But I'm happy for Jaylen Brown at least to be 5th in All-Star voting. So it does show that obviously people still consider him a league-wide star. And even speaking of the 5th place in All-Star voting, our guy Trae Young is the 5th in the Eastern Conference for the guards. He has 543,839. Yep. Playing for the Atlanta Hawks, obviously. And he's looked good this season as well, leading the league in assists. Everyone wants to talk about his scoring and stuff like that, but I feel like now that he has Jalen Johnson, another person who I would have loved to have seen get that All-Star nod this year. I do think that will happen eventually. Jalen Johnson, who's currently averaging 20 points, 10 rebounds, and almost 6 assists a game, and a block and a steal. So I do think at one point, by 25, 26, he will for certain be an all-star. And the Hawks have him locked up for the next 5 years. So it's going to be cool to see him really develop in that red and white. And yeah, if I had to give my starters and my reserves, the starting point guard for the East, like if I had to be completely objective, like I do think the starting PG, I think, man, like, I think Damian, I'll say Damian, like, among all those dudes, he's been the superstar for the longest amount of time, and he's still playing at a superstar level. For the shooting guard position, it's pretty hard. I'll probably go Donovan Mitchell. I do think he is the best shooting guard in the Well, if we're talking about shooting guards, I think not Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown does play the shooting guard most of the time, you could say. If I had to choose, I'd put Jaylen Brown as the starting shooting guard. Have to give him that respect, being the defending champions. But, of course, Cleveland have the better record right now, though. So Donovan Mitchell really might be the starting shooting guard. Starting small forward, I'll say Tatum. Power forward, I'll say Giannis. And for the center, I will say Karl-Anthony Towns. I think he's really came into his own in New York City, playing in that new environment, really lit a fire under him after getting traded from Minnesota, as he currently averages like 25 points and 14 rebounds a game while shooting great from beyond the arc. He's grabbing 35 points and 18 boards like it's nothing this season. He's looked terrific. Some of the reserves for the Eastern Conference All-Star team, if I had to say, I think Tyrese Maxey will make it. Of course, I would love to see Trae, but I'm just trying to give some other names as well. Cade Cunningham has played outstanding, in my opinion.
I literally almost had Cade because it was between Cade and Cat. Because, for Detroit, they are a play-in team right now, so it's possible they could make the playoffs this year. So I did want to give Cade some love, but, obviously with Cat, he's Cat. He does what he does, but, yeah, it was definitely close.
Absolutely, and those are my starters as well. If I had to pick my backup PG for Damian Lillard, I'm gonna go with Cade, man. I'm gonna give him that love. He's obviously, he came in as a number 1 overall pick. He was extremely patient with the Detroit Pistons. He never ever once gave any leak in front of the media about him leaving or anything like that. He was saying the opposite last season. He was saying there was never a point in time I ever felt like, oh, I can't beat these dudes or I feel blown out and stuff like that. So it's good that he stayed strong. He gave them the time needed to build a team around him, and they're finally receiving those benefits now. Even as we record this, they're one of the top contenders in the Cooper Flag sweepstakes. So it looks like things are really about to be changing in the Motor City in the next 2 or 3 seasons. So I'm really happy for Cade Cunningham. I'd make him my point guard reserve for the All-Star game. Tyler Hero, in my opinion, has had a career year. Most improved player candidate for the Miami Heat. I do think he could also be an All-Star reserve. For my big men, for my All-Star reserves, I was going to say, I know people are going to say Paolo Banchero. I was going to give Franz Wagner some love. When Paulo went out and Franz took over, he showed that he can be that 25 point per game scorer and lead a team by himself. So I'd probably have Franz being like my big forward All-Star reserve, and my All-Star reserve center. I gotta go with the man over in Philly, Joel Embiid. He's still playing good. I just think that obviously, I mean, with Embiid, it's always been his personality. You could say he's still averaging 24 points a game with 8 rebounds. Definitely dipped in terms of his production compared to his MVP season a couple years ago. But at the end of the day, I still think he is one of the best centers in the Eastern Conference. I think Carl Anthony might have taken that throne from him as of right now, the way he's playing over in New York. But I still do think Joel is a pretty good center, definitely top 5 in my opinion. And I'll probably have Joel as my All-Star reserve. And obviously, we could talk about the Western Conference as well. I feel like that's fairly easy given how like the standings are looking right now. Obviously, SGA would be this the starting point guard in the Western Conference. For the shooting guard position, 1 minute, I'm pulling up these notes. For shooting guard, I mean, honestly, I think Jalen Green's looked pretty good, man. With the Houston Rockets, I think he's looked really, really good. They're 24-12 right now, and I do think he could get that nod. Obviously, from my small forward position, I'll probably, yo, who else would it be outside of LeBron James? So I'm just gonna go ahead and say LeBron for my starting small forward. My starting power forward, honestly, I'll probably go with AD, man. I'll go with Anthony Davis and my starting center for the 2025 All-Star game in the Western Conference. I know it's a different format this year, but if I had to choose who it would be, I would pick the one and only Victor Wembanyama from the San Antonio Spurs.
Ooh, as a starter?
Yeah, I think honestly, I think he's hit that level. I think honestly, they want to see him play. I do 100% think popularity wise, he would get that nod. He was the first game, I think, on Christmas Day. Or like he played noon. He was like one of the earlier games on Christmas Day. So when they played the New York Knicks. So I do think that the whole world wants to see a Victor Wembanyama right now. And I mean, even honestly, he's performing at an extremely high level, even honestly at his young age right now. He's averaging 25 points, 11 rebounds, 3.8 assists. And I already know he's averaging almost 4 blocks a game. So I do think that he's starting to show why he was chosen as the number 1 overall pick. That's safe to say. And I do think that Victor Wembanyama should definitely be the starting center for the Western Conference All-Star team. But who would you say your Western Conference All-Star team starters would be?
Yeah, so at the point, it's GA. It's the number
Ja?
1.
Okay, Ja.
Yeah.
What about Curry?
Yeah, I do have Curry, but not as a starter. So yeah, I have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander at the point guard position.
Gotcha.
Number 2, I do have Luka, so it's kind of interchangeable with this one. So because of his injury, so we don't exactly know if he's going to exactly play or not. He should be getting evaluated on that calf injury. A little, soon, maybe like within the next couple of weeks. So if he's able to go, I will have him at the 2. 3, I have Kevin Durant at a small forward position.
Yep.
4, I have LeBron, and then at the 5 position, I have to go with my man Jokic, the Joker. So I had to go with him at number 5. It is interesting take on your side about Wemby playing at the 5 because, like you say, a lot of people do want to see Wemby. So it's not necessarily a hot take. I mean, I think obviously he will eventually be a starter, but between him and Jokic at this time, I mean, it's hard to debate, man. I mean, it's hard to
no, Jokic for sure.
Debate.
Like,
yeah, for sure.
For sure. Like Jokic,
for sure.
Like for sure, bro. Most definitely.
Yeah. But I mean, honestly though, it could be where KD could be just a reserve, and then LeBron could be the starting small forward, and then it could be where both Wemby and Jokic could share the front court together. But I just think that with the 5, obviously Jokic just has the better team. He's putting up bigger numbers, but to your point, the numbers that Wemby is posting with 25 points, 11 rebounds, and almost 4 assists and almost 4 blocks, I mean, that's nothing to be ignored. So that could happen, but I still have to go with my man, the Joker.
Of course.
Now for the reserves, like I said, I do have Steph at the 1 there. Number 2, I do have Anthony Edwards, and this is where I said it was interchangeable. So if it's where Anthony, if it's where Luka can't go and he's out for another extended time, then I think Anthony Edwards will get the 2 guard position, and then someone maybe like Devin Booker or John Morant will fill in that spot. But after Anthony Edwards, I do have Kyrie Irving. Gotcha. I think he should be in it because I mean someone has to support the Mavs at some point. Like I said, Luka can't go. They've been playing very good this year, so I had to show the Mavs some love. I do next have Wemby, and then lastly I have AD. So I have to get AD in there, but yeah, that's what I got.
Got you. Yeah, man. And to end it off with my reserves as well. It kind of hurts to put Curry on the bench. It's pretty crazy to say that. Even as we record this right now, he still has 1.3 million votes, but I do think SGA will get the starting spot this year. But I'll probably go Curry as my backup point guard. A backup shooting guard similar to yours. I gotta go Anthony Edwards 1,000%. Still playing like a superstar in Minnesota. They've taken a dip definitely since last season after trading Karl-Anthony Towns, but he's still playing at a very high level. My small forward on the bench, I'll probably go KD. I made LeBron a starter, so I'd probably put Kevin Durant. And for my power forward, I'll go Alperen Sengun. I think Alperen Sengun's really good. With of course, playing in Houston, he can play the 5, but I prefer to put him at the 4 for my lineup. And I guess there's only one man left to pick for me. It would be Nikola Jokic.
Yeah, I'm just like, man, why does it take you so long to say that, bro?
Of the Denver Nuggets, and it's not.
Disrespect is real out here.
And it's not to disrespect him, absolutely not. The former Raymond. No, of course not. No, you're good, man. I appreciate the jokes. And I know there's people out there that would disagree. For me, I only say Victor because I do think that he's a hot commodity. If I do think who's more marketable, it's Wembanyama without a doubt. Even they're both European, they both speak English, all these things. I just think that like for tickets wise, don't get me wrong, man. Jokic fucking sales, man. It's just it's Nikola Jokic, man. I just think that they call Victor the alien, for a reason because he's truly something we've damn near never seen before. With his capabilities and his skill set at his size. So I pick Wembanyama, but obviously those two are definitely interchangeable. And even to take my bias out of it, not bias, but my pick really. Nikola Jokic currently has 2.2 million votes, leading the way in all of the Western Conference All-Stars. Guards, forwards, doesn't matter. Reserve starters, doesn't matter. He has the most votes at 2.2 million. And again, we'll see what happens with the new format that they're gonna use. I kind of see why, man, because it's a lot of talent to go around. It's a lot of players. It really is a lot of players, man. So I get it, and it only brings in more viewership if they get to see all those players on one night like that. Mm-hmm. So I can honestly see why they want to try something different. I just think people don't like change, especially with something traditional as the All-Star game. I still miss when they just had the red and blue jerseys for the East and the West. That was my favorite era, the 2012 era and stuff like that was my favorite personally. But yeah, honestly, that's really it with the All-Star discussion. All of these players are playing at an extremely high level. We mentioned earlier who we think the MVPs could be. Honestly, right now, I think Nikola could still win it. Even with the triple-double he's averaging. It's crazy to say this. It's not just an average triple-double.
Yeah, it's not. 32 points, 13 rebounds, and 10 assists.
10
I mean,
assists is not regular because we've seen players in the past these last couple years.
and the thing about it though, because we've seen Russell Westbrook average a
Yep.
triple double, but I think with Nikola Jokic, he's doing it in a efficient performance where okay, he's putting up these muscle numbers, but at the same time, he's literally making everybody better around his
Hitter.
team. And that's the thing about it. So it's definitely a difference in the numbers there. So that's what makes it even like more scary with Jokic.
Mhm.
We put in these kind of numbers. So
Of course, of course, of
yeah.
course. And for our last topic of the evening, again, want to thank you guys for joining us so much. Really appreciate y'all really popping out to really watch the show. Y'all could be anywhere else right now, but you're watching us, and we deeply do appreciate it. Here on the
Absolutely.
Uncommon Commentators, as you see the name, obviously, we like to keep it real and be completely objective when breaking down the sport of basketball. And there's a negative side. Well, not really negative side to it. Honestly, it's a business at the end of the day. All these people know what they signed up for when they've grinded 18 years of their life to make it to the NBA, or also 30 plus years if you're a coach or a trainer, whatever you may offer to the sport. And we've seen coaches, whether in the middle of the season or in the off season, unfortunately lose their job. I never wish unemployment on anyone. It's devastating to you and your family, especially when it's unexpected like that. Now, clearly for NBA coaches, unemployment isn't the worst thing because, the contracts are still guaranteed, obviously. And with most recently, we saw that Mike Brown of the Sacramento Kings was unfortunately let go. They played amazing last year. So to see him get a pretty short rope the way that he did was kind of surprising. Even De'Aaron Fox thought they were going to be together for a pretty long time after signing an extension. He had just won the Coach of the Year in 2023. While with the Sacramento Kings. So to see him get the boot like that is honestly really sad. So what was your reaction to the Mike Brown firing? And if you could list any other coach you think might be on the hot seat right now, who would that be?
Yeah, I mean, you and I know how it goes, not just in the NBA, but in the NFL when it
Yep.
comes to coaches, where it's like, hey,
Yeah, man.
when a team has high expectations and if they're not met, I mean, obviously somebody's going to be the scapegoat. And really 10 times out of 10 is always the head coach. I mean, I can't even tell you how many head coaches we have seen that get fired because the expectations come up short. So it's not really a surprise to see Mike Brown be let go. Of course, we've heard other coaches around the league that didn't like the firing. You've heard
Yep.
it from Steve Kerr. I mean, you heard it from Mike Malone from the Nuggets. So, of course, coaches are going to express their emotions and their opinions about it. But like I said, when it's all said and done, when you have high expectations and they are not met, then like I said, somebody's going to be a scapegoat. So it's not surprising to see Mike Brown leave. But I truly like Mike Brown. I mean, he's been in this league for a very long time. He
Man.
was once the head coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers during LeBron's early
Mhm.
times,
Mhm.
and they were a very dangerous team back then. So, I mean, this is not a guy that's new to the game. He's been around for a very long time. So I've always respected Mike Brown for his work. And it's sad to see him go, but at the end of the day, you're looking at the Kings now, and if I'm not mistaken, they're on a 5-game winning streak. So it's just like, hey, if whatever it is you have to do to turn the ship around, then you understand you have to do it. But I
Right.
think that with Mike Brown, at least during his short stint, like you said, he's done a pretty good job. The year before last, they were a top 3 seed team, and that was the first time they made the playoffs, I believe, in 16, 17 years. So so you have to give him credit for that. So, but I think for Mike Brown, I don't think he'll be out long. I'm not sure if his next opportunity will be a head coaching job, but I think soon he'll be at least an assistant coach for somebody else. So it won't be long until he'll be out.
Oh yeah, man, he's definitely gonna get picked up for sure. You see, like I said, two-time NBA Coach of the Year. I definitely think he's gonna get picked up for certain. He has a Hall of Fame resume. Honestly, he really could be a Hall of Famer, Mike Brown, when you really look at his achievements and his accomplishments. And
Mhm.
assessing the rest of the league, with some of the teams that have been playing poor. Of course, you want to be fair to the coaches. They need talent to work with at the end of the
Exactly.
day. But we know how the GMs, they just like they tolerate no excuses, unfortunately, at the end of the day. And some of them honestly look for a scapegoat, someone to blame. And sometimes they probably ask the players how they felt about the coach. And I feel like, again, like even the players might use him like the coach as a scapegoat, because clearly like the players dictate the success of the game, even though we know how important the coach is. But the coach needs the talent to work with. And I say that because assessing the Toronto Raptors, we know that head coach Darko Rajakovic, he just took over. And unfortunately for the Raptors, they are 8-29 as of right now. It's his second season with the team, so they are giving him the time needed to try to build the roster. He has Scotty Barnes, and they're still trying to improve. But as of right now, I just think the Raptors are obviously I can't say they're in a bad spot because they're trying to get a draft pick in this upcoming stacked 2025 NBA draft. But I think with Coach Rajakovic, like I really feel like the GMs are definitely looking at him. If he can't get it together by next season, I definitely think they're gonna maybe pull the trigger. Maybe depending how this season ends, like if they get a good draft pick, they'll keep them. But if they don't get the pick that they want, and it's just like a total loss of a season, like they lost money, they didn't get a good draft pick, and all like there's a bunch of negative signs, I do unfortunately think they would let him go. But of course, I do not want that. And even then, talking about another team as well, the Utah Jazz at the moment, I feel like they're showing improvements as a roster. I really do feel like that, but they're 9-26 right now. Of course, they're decimated by injuries. Jordan Clarkson is out. I'm pretty sure John Collins is out right now. But they still have Lauri Markkanen, who's playing at a very high level. Lauri is. And it's unfortunate because a lot of his success is really shrouded by the losses that occur on a night-to-night basis in the Delta Center. And that's another coach, Will Hardy, I think that could definitely be on the hot seat, unfortunately. And again, I don't want no coach to ever lose their job. But again, if I had to say any other coaches right now that are in like the front running for that, I would probably say those two. And yeah, outside of that, the Suns with Mike Budenholzer, they're obviously they're 16-19, but they have the Bradley Beal situation going on, and I feel like they're gonna retool the team. And we know Mike Budenholzer is a good coach. We've seen him win championships. We've seen him be coach of the year with the Atlanta Hawks, winning 60 games and stuff like that. So if I had to give my real front runners for the coaches on the hot seat, it would be those two coaches. For the East and the West, the Toronto Raptors with Darko Rajakovic, and in the Western Conference, I will say Will Hardy of the Utah Jazz. But if you could give a coach you think is on the hot seat right now based on the team performance, who would you say?
I would probably say Doc Rivers.
Doc Rivers?
To be honest with you. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, man, because to be honest with you, and look, I don't work with the Bucks. I'm not in their front office, so I don't know the decision making process is for them.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I can only look, outside, just outside looking in. And I didn't understand the firing of Adrian Griffin, of their head coach last year, and the hiring of Doc Rivers, because I believe the Bucks, they were 35-12 before they let go Adrian Griffin.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's just like they're obviously, we know that the Bucks, that they are one of the best teams in the East, but on the court, they just don't seem like the Bucks that we know. We all expect that. Even for me, I thought that the Bucks were going to be a very hard team to beat when they added Damian Lillard. Of course, that they lost a lot of depth on the defensive side.
Jrue Holiday?
When they acquired Dame, which I understood, but they're just not that team that I could say, hey, yeah, this team is going to be in the mix for the championship. I think they should have just kept everything the way it was. and go on from there. I think they let Adrian Griffin go too soon, but like I said, that's their decision to make. But I just think that with the Bucks, I think they're just too good to be where they are right now. I think they need a new voice, and look, we've seen it. Some of it last year and earlier this year. You've seen all the Giannis trade rumors going around, and you've heard his frustration about the team. And
Mm-hmm.
I even remember a time where he said, "Hey, if you don't want to be here, you can go."
Leave
So it's not
on camera.
something. Yeah, it's not something you can just brush off your shoulder. I mean, that's serious talk. So like I said, it's just where you want guys like Cleveland, for example. They didn't make any major changes to their roster. They brought in a guy that knows how to put a team together, a guy that can make everyone believe in each other, and you see the results that they have now. So I think that's what they need. I don't think they need a major overhaul. Sure, you could say that they may need to make some upgrades to the roster, I guess, to recover the defensive depth that they lost after the
Mm-hmm.
Damian Lillard trade. But I think mainly if they just bring in a new voice, then hey, I think they could get back to where they were once before, where they're that actual championship type of franchise. But I think that Doc Rivers, it may not be this year, but I think in the all season possibly. I think that he could be in a hot seat for sure, where he could be let go. But I mean, we'll see. But I think that for Doc Rivers for sure, I think he's definitely up there.
Yeah, man, and he's playing with a superstar. Well, he's coaching a superstar that is not afraid to let his mouth be heard. Especially in terms of his satisfaction with the organization. Giannis will say it in a press conference. He'll say it wherever he feels. He will say so. Especially after
He
bringing a
will.
exactly. Like, especially after bringing the championship to the city, I definitely feel like he's grown up there. Like I definitely feel like he feels he owns that seniority over any coach, any trainer, any GM. Like especially when you have a generational talent like that, you do whatever to keep him on your team just for revenue purposes alone. They have to keep Giannis Antetokounmpo on the roster. And even then, the New Orleans Pelicans are 7-31. Unfortunately for Willie Green, a lot, they got DeJounte Murray, obviously, after losing Dyson Daniels and doing the trade with the Hawks. But Murray came in like he fractured his wrist. I think it was super early into the season.
It was, yeah.
And like that was just a massive setback for the Pelicans because they really needed a point guard heading into the season. He was going to be the perfect replacement for them at the top of their lineup, especially with playing with someone like Zion, who would be a
Not
great.
only that though, but I mean their entire starting five has been injured too. I mean,
Right, Herbert Jones, like Trey
CJ
Murphy.
McCollum, he's missed time, of course Zion and Brandon Ingram.
Right.
So yeah,
Mhm.
they've been. I mean, and really though, I mean, when you look at in a bigger picture, I mean, when you look at the season thus far, look at around the league. I mean, many players have
Every
been
team, right?
injured. I
Every
mean,
team.
luckily for the Hawks, I mean, they haven't had anybody that had, with guys like Jaden Johnson or Trey, who was, missed significant time. Of course, Kobe Buffkin, he's out for the season, but
Right.
nothing like, your main guy. So, but yeah, it's been a mess this year for sure. Man, Pelicans, they've been one of those teams that has had the worst luck.
Yeah, man, and it's crazy when a team gets bitten like that, though. Like when it's your whole
Yeah.
starting like that, like that's ridiculous. Like that's when you have to give Willie Green an opportunity to change it around
Yeah, you definitely have to. This is not on him, so it's not.
because like that's just crazy to really think that. Another coach as well who I think they should give him a little bit more time is the Hall of Famer Chauncey Billups with the Portland Trailblazers. Obviously they got Scoot Henderson in the draft, and they shift some stuff around. They also have DeAndre Ayton now. I just think with
Mhm.
Chauncey, like again, like they're just still a rebuilding team. They just drafted Donovan Clingan last summer, so they got their center for the future. I just think that Chauncey Billups really has to be given the opportunity to continue to grow with the team. As we record this, they are 13-23. He's been the head coach of the team since 2021, so he's been with them since before the rebuild even began.
Mhm.
So they definitely should give him enough time turn the roster around. I definitely think he has the mind for coaching, the mind for basketball. Of course, we've seen players not translate to the sideline well before, but I think given his knowledge for the game, his approach to the game, and his veteranship, I do think he'll be a really good coach for that young locker room. And that's exactly what a young locker room like them need, is a coach like that, and outside of that, that was really it for the West. In the Charlotte Hornets, we'll see if Steve Clifford. They're still just. I can't really tell you.
You mean Charles Lee?
Charles Lee. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, he used to be. I'm sorry about that. I forgot about Charles Lee. I can't really tell you what position the Charlotte Hornets are actually in right now. Yeah, they're still rebuilding, but they've been at the bottom of the Eastern Conference for for forever at this point. Unfortunately, they do have to build a team around around LaMelo. And he's been patient with them. I do think he enjoys being the star of the team, so that definitely is a really big factor of it. But I do think at a certain point in time, LaMelo is going to want to actually win for a change, really see what it's like to be in the playoffs, being at the top of the conference, and not just have fun on the court and put up big numbers. Like we mentioned earlier, he's the leading all-star candidate in the Eastern Conference. So obviously, regardless of even being in obscurity in terms of the entire league, he still manages to find his way to the forefront of the NBA, just being as talented as he is. And yeah, outside of that, we'll see how much time Charles Lee did. I mentioned Steve Clifford. He became the front office advisor and executive, so he just went upstairs. That means he threw his hands up and he couldn't do it anymore, unfortunately. I remember, I've still caught on Steve Clifford being their coach for years. I forgot that it's Charles Lee now. I appreciate my man Garrett for reminding me of that. I apologize for forgetting that. That was really all I had for the coaches, the two I gave you. It was Darko Rajakovic and Will Hardy. Even to assess the remaining of the season for those two coaches, like I said, if it's just a complete loss of the season for the Raptors, that's when I think they're going to have a conversation with Darko and they'll maybe try to go in a different direction. For Will Hardy, if I had to be honest, I think they might give him another year. I think he's trying his best in Utah. I think he has good coaching principles. And even then, he was an assistant coach with the Spurs, learning under Greg Popovich from 2015 to 2021. So he is a Popovich disciple. So I do think that he is the right coach for the Utah Jazz. They just got to give him some time. He was even on Boston's bench from 2021 to 2022. So he's been in winning cultures. I feel like that's a major reason why he even got the job in the first place to lead this young team. I just think they have to give him the time, honestly. I'm really high on Keontae George. I'm really high on Lauri Markkanen, and John Collins has found new life in Utah after being traded from the from the Atlanta Hawks. And we know how big of a deal that was when he first got traded. And, some of the people online wanted him to do bad and stuff like that. But as we record this, he's averaging 18 points and 8 rebounds a game right now while shooting 52% from the field. So John Collins, and even last night, in his last win over the Heat, where the Jazz beat the Heat 136-100. So that shows you when the Jazz are fully healthy, they can still compete. Absolutely. John Collins had 24 points and 9 rebounds. So they still have a lot of talent on the team for Will Hardy to work with. I think this offseason, with whoever they manage to get in the draft is going to be a massive piece of the future. They have a star, not a superstar, but a star in Lauri Markkanen, who loves Utah. He's staying with them after signing an extension. So we're going to see what happens with the Utah Jazz. But the Raptors, though, I do think that Darko's in a way hotter seat than Will Hardy. If I had to say, I think he's in the hottest seat of them all, Darko Rajakovic. as we approach the All-Star break. We'll see how like Toronto looks the rest of the season. Obviously, they don't have too much to work with on their roster. They still have Scotty Barnes. He signed an extension as well, so they have their superstar for the future. And they need to build around him, and that's exactly what they're gonna do. If I had to say who they should draft, like position wise this summer, I would love to see the Raptors get like a good point guard for the future. In my opinion, but I feel like obviously like they need a lot of pieces. But if you could give a pick for what the Raptors need going into next offseason, who would that be? Since their coach might be on the hottest seat this season.
I mean, honestly, I think for the Raptors, even though as you mentioned that they could use a point guard, which is good, but I just think that for a team like the Jazz or even the Raptors, I think they need to take the best player available. I mean, of course, you have guys like Emmanuel Quickly and RJ Barrett, those type of guys, but I think that they should take the best player available, no
Mm-hmm.
matter who that player is. That could, and obviously we don't know exactly where they'll fall in the draft,
Yep.
but that could be a Cooper Flag, that could be a Dylan Harper, that could be a Ace Bailey, that could be a VJ Edgecombe. And we know how the draft lottery is by now. You could be the worst team in the league, and then you can end up getting the 6th overall pick. So it's not guaranteed you get the number 1 overall pick. So that's why I say it could be
Mm-hmm.
anybody of those guys. But if they're able to, land one of those guys, then I think that's who they should take. I don't think they're a team that should go draft somebody based off of need. I think whoever the best player is available, we're in there on the clock. That's who they should get.
Mm-hmm. And it's pretty crazy, like you said that, man. Because I just checked Tankathon, one of the trusted websites for NBA draft mocks and stuff like that. Apparently, according to Tankathon, they'll get the 3rd pick in the draft out of the lottery, and they would draft Ace Bailey with that. And I checked another draft.net, where they have the 5th pick, and they would draft Igor Demin out of BYU. So both of those dudes are guards, forwards. So clearly, like I guess some of the experts think that's what the Raptors need right now. I think Igor Demin would be phenomenal for the Raptors, with especially how he can alternate between the point guard, the shooting guard, even the small forward here and there. His jump shot's still improving, but he's a great playmaker. A good finisher as well. And if they get Ace Bailey, I think things are going to turn around in Toronto pretty soon. Absolutely. But that was really it for me today on today's show. Unless you had any closing topics you wanted to discuss or anything like that, that was it for me, Garrett. If that was it for you.
Yeah, that's all I got for tonight.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, we want to appreciate y'all again for joining us. Thank you all so much for joining us again. Y'all could be anywhere in the world, but you're here with us. And we want to thank y'all again. God bless y'all. And good night, and stay warm out there. We know in the southern region of the United States, it's pretty crazy right now as we record this.
That snow is coming in. So
seriously,
stay warm, fellas.
Mm-hmm. Me and Garrett both stay in Georgia, and as we record this, it is 30 degrees outside of these walls right now. We're not really used to that down here. I'm gonna be completely honest with you. Shout out to Jay Holloway, great friend of ours. He lives in Chicago, so he's built different than we are. You could say.
Yeah, you can have all that.
But yeah, again, thank y'all so much for joining us. Y'all stay warm, stay safe, and God bless you all.